members asking if we were able to provide any sort of regarding financing. My answer to that basically said, hey, we're not equipped to provide a go or no go on the financing front. One of our mandates, our ordinance, is to look at other structures and look at concepts, but members are probably the ones that are equipped to do that. And so, but aside from that, it was again, positive on all fronts, and I think they're looking forward to our next presentation. Yeah, hey Laura, just saw your note. I believe it's up on YouTube. Does that kind of get you what you need?
Well, hey, good. I mean, as you know, I was there and you did a great job delivering the remarks. It would be if you had a piece of paper that you were reading from, and I think you did, and you would share that with us, it would be helpful to have the documentation.
Yeah, sure. Yes, great. Definitely.
Thank you.
I can get that to you. You're welcome. I've learned at this point I have no ability to ad lib, so pretty sure it's read word for word. Bob, I see your hand up. Go for it.
Hey, good, great job. How do you read the fact that there was only one question?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it was there's a city council workshop tomorrow. I think there's a lot that's going to be going on at the city council workshop. I think the council's, at least, has had a number of, I don't know how to put it, like very in-depth topics to discuss. This is one of them. So point is that I think a lot of the detail was probably pushed to, and they had a full agenda. And so I think a lot of the detail is probably pushed to this October 21st workshop, which is, tomorrow's workshop at 4 o'clock. And then after that, I think there'll be more discussion, was the way it was left, more discussion at at our next upcoming presentation, which I forget the date of it offhand, but it's upcoming next couple weeks. Oh, I forget audio issues. Dale, do you know offhand what the next presentation is? I think you're on mute.
I'm sorry, I wasn't following which presentation you're referring to.
Our next address to
that is. I mean, I think that is up to this advisory committee when they want to do that. I think the target was November 9. You will likely have, if you would do that then, you can do it on November 23rd. You can do it as late as, I think, December 7th. I think that would be the next one. That is up to the committee to determine when it wants to do that. I think it's should be prepared to say something more definitive as opposed to sort of process recommendations and very firm statements about a water plan. What your feelings are, thoughts are about this process, and should the city step into PED cautiously or not. I mean, I think that's it, or continue moving forward with investigations. I think the city council is going to want to know what the advisory committee recommends on that. So again, you have the option there, November 9th. Be aware that you will be competing. General Kelly, the division commander from the Army Corps of Engineers for the South Atlantic Division, which is the Charleston district, falls under that. He will be in town that day and maybe making a short presentation to council also about this topic. So
might not be a bad idea to tack on to that just as we're discussing it. It's shifting and out, but the less abrupt it can be, I feel like the better discussion will get.
Right. Okay.
Bob, I know it's a long way to answer your question. Does that get you any additional commentary there? And Herbert, I'll call on you right after that. I do see your hand up.
Yeah, that's fine. I guess there'd be a number of ways to interpret it, but we'll see what the nature of the interaction is tomorrow. The continuing question is, we can do great work. Alan can do great work. A lot of people can do great work. And if we don't have the votes at the city council, DOA. So that's a concern. Just, I think it's a concern everyone shares.
Yep, agreed. Herbert, go for it.
Good morning, Hagrid and everyone. Could you elaborate somewhat as to the council's response to the Rosemount situation? And I heard you say in reference to Laura's question about getting the full report, that's a written report. How and when can that be available, or how do we go about getting that?
I have it in some kind of document. I just have to figure out what it is. It's either a Word document or maybe on my Evernote or something like that. So, per Laura's point, I think it's probably the easiest way to do it. It should be exactly in keeping with what I said, which is on the City of Charleston's YouTube channel.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah, please.
If I can beg Kaylin to find the city council video on YouTube, the recording, and find out where your starring role occurred at the time, and she sends that out to everyone as a link. So here's the link to the video. Here is where Haygood does his work, and I think then you'll have the verbatim transcript of the verbatim recording of what has happened. Is that a way to solve this? Because there wasn't a report. I mean, a written document of 50 pages that Haygood presented. It was a statement, so to speak. Is that a fair way to get through this?
I can do that. I think I also have, I can collect your transcript from what the suggested language of recommendation that you pulled together from the email chains that everybody sent last week before your presentation. And, if you're looking for the language for the Rosemont resiliency strategy, I can send that out. And same with the water plan recommendation and the east side. I have all that. I just have to put it in one place. So, and I will go back and find that time in the remarks. That's not a problem.
Yeah, look, with my request, I wasn't trying to create a lot of work for everyone. It would be helpful to be able to, I thought perhaps, hey, good, you had a document with your talking points on it that you could share with us. But if that's hard and Kaylin, it's going to be work for you to go collect things in different places, then don't worry about it. We can go look at the YouTube.
Thanks. We should be able to get it,
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we'll figure it out. Go for it, Dale.
So say, hey, good, if you'll just send your Word document with your talking points, then we can, Kaylin will find the point on the video, and then we can wrap it up with just sending that out to everyone, the document and the reference to the video and the timing in the video. And I think mission accomplished.
You got it. Herbert, there was not any response from City Council. Not to say that folks didn't have a thought or there just wasn't any sort of response at the moment regarding Rosemont. Really, the only response I got was regarding financing.
The only response was what? Excuse me, I didn't hear you.
Was regarding financing. Was regarding the funding of the project, and that was a specific question. Aside from that, there's a lot of general positive feedback, but there was nothing specific to the water plan, Rosemont, the east side alignment, east side of the peninsula alignment, nor the ports complex. So I didn't get specific. There was no specific questions or feedback on any of the recommendations.
Any other comments? I mean, do you want me to give my little brief update here on whatever the agenda? I apologize, but I've been asked to do an interview with CNN out in Church Creek starting at 11 o'clock. They're interested in all the things happening in Charleston, and I have to be out there by 11. So I'm going to have to drop at 10:30. And I apologize very much, but I have to go out and do that. So if you want me to provide a little update of what we've been doing and some of the things I've been working on, happy to do that now.
Yeah. Wait, real quick before you do that, just a couple clarification items. Herbert, that doesn't answer your question. Does that get you taken care of for the moment?
For the moment, yes. I just need more feedback as in reference to Rosemount. I'd be interested in everything else pertaining to the work the committee is doing in that presentation to the council. Rosemount is sort of sitting in limbo, and we need definite answers to our questions and concerns. And I just thought that in that presentation there would have been some feedback, and you could have brought that back, and we could use that in our strategizing as to where we go from here.
Understood. I think after this, this workshop will be a good opportunity to discuss that specific feedback. Just something to have on your calendars. And then next quick cleanup item is, Kellen, do we have Kellen or Dale, do we have a quorum here?
We actually do not. So if there's anything that needs to have a motion to vote on something, we could not do that unless somebody else joins in this meeting, because we only have half the committee on right now.
Understood. I know we've had a lot of meetings, so it's has something to do with it. And then Bob, I'm gonna wrap just my kind of update section with you, and then Dale, go to you. I know your timing is up, but Bob, go for it.
Just a real quick one. Which councilman asked the question about financing? Out of curiosity.
Councilmember Harry Griffin.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Dale, please go for it.
Great. Thanks, everyone. I know we've been working a lot, and I appreciate your continued engagement and thoughts. I've spoken with a lot of you over the last 2 weeks, and it's always fruitful, and I learn a lot. So thank you for that. Some updates here. City Council, at the request of Council Member Carol Jackson, who I think is listening today. She requested a workshop about a month ago. That workshop is scheduled for tomorrow at 4 p.m. At the Gilliard. It's a council workshop, so the public is invited. It is not an interactive session with the public. It is a council workshop where there will be a series of presentations, some of which you've heard parts of, and you will have myself, Wes from the Army Corps of Engineers, Matt Fountain from Stormwater. Yeah, I think that's it. And sort of a brief update either from Amy Wharton or myself on a financing plan for PED and sort of concepts of a strategy. That will be tomorrow, again, 4 o'clock. It is in person. And after that, after the meeting is over, we were bringing all of these large maps we have of the peninsula and the likely alignment or the TSP alignment of the structure with elevations and things like that. So people can actually look at it, and that is going to be very helpful. Just seeing the map in front of you as opposed to in a little screen in front of you, just that is just very useful. We know that from design workshops. I want to just make give Susan and her team big applause for the document that they developed. We think it's very strong. Off the record, the Corps of Engineers looked at it and gave it 2 thumbs up. So there you go. You did a great job. I mean, it's just, it was very informational, and we appreciate the work that you and your team did on that. It is on the city's website. It should be on the city's website. It's also distributed elsewhere, and the City Council has a copy of it. The issue with the alignment through the Union Pier Terminal, the TSP alignment through Union Pier Terminal and Columbus Terminal is a very important issue. The city had a position about that the city thought it should be pushed further eastward towards the Cooper River. A brief update there is the Corps of Engineers and the port are working closely on this. You saw the port statement that Haygood read to the council last week that, you know, they're working together. The possible move of that line is likely not to be too much different from what the discovery report that the Wagner Ball Water Institute team recommended last year. So really close to the land water edge on the port. So that would encapsulate that would bring that entire structure, that would bring the entire port property within that. And it has to be done with the port operations in mind and the redevelopment of Union Pier Terminal. So there are some things there, but we're hopeful that that by December, and that's a loose target, but it feels to be a doable target, that there will be much more to say about this. And you will, again, if all the analysis go right, it's not just moving the line. The Corps has to do an analysis against this line, like they did against all the other lines on the map, to make sure the impact, do an impact analysis and a real estate analysis and all the things that go into the analysis that was done for TSP. So they're doing that now. So it does show some flexibility from the Corps of Engineers, and it shows an achievement, we hope, of making this line work better for the city. So I'll leave it at that. Again, no promises, but they're working hard, and we hope to hear something in a month or before the end of the year. Yesterday, the Metro Chamber of Commerce held a business in the backyard event focused on the 3x3 and what it is and what is TSP and PED. The mayor and I made a presentation at that. It will be posted on the website, their website. You can see what we said there. It was pretty well attended, we think, for given code rules, because they're in existence at the Metro Chamber offices, and there are a lot of folks online. Just a briefing. Again, I would recommend, if you want to see how we're approaching this, it's there. You can watch the video. I want to acknowledge a gentleman from the medical district, and Dennis, maybe you want to reframe or rephrase what your colleague Stuart said. He's the COO, I think, of the medical district. So anyway.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Are you able to hear me? I've got video, but no sound. I don't know if you're able to hear.
We can hear you.
Okay, here. Yeah, Stuart Mixon was there. I was on the video. He was there in person. And I thought the presentation, Dale, you and the mayor made, and Wes's remarks were very good. You know, as I've said, I think in earlier meetings, the medical district, we're concerned with all these other issues that are being talked about. But for us, survival of the patient care we deliver is just paramount. And so the surge protection is important. And so our position, and I've talked to the VA and the Roper, of course, MUSC, is that we think that moving ahead to PED is recommended so we could answer these questions. So that's, we don't want to stop any of the other questions that other people have, but we think that from our point of view, as of trying to continue to deliver healthcare in these crises, it's not just the delivery locally, but, you know, we serve such a large region, South Carolina and really Southeast, and some types of care of the entire nation. So that was our position, and that's what Stuart said last night. So thank you, Dale, for letting me make that point. Thank you.
Sure, great. Thank you, Dennis. Again, it was a fruitful meeting. It was informative, I think. That was my goal. So it's there to look at. This is part of the outreach that the city has been doing. Keep in mind, we are talking with the U.S. Congress members, so members Mason, Clyburn, and Scott and Graham and those folks, with some county folks and with some state folks. Those things are underway. We're informing them where we are and you know, what we think about where we are. We have an informal meeting with the Gatlinboro neighborhood this week, the Army Corps, and I think Alan Davis and myself are going to go over there and listen and try to explain where we are and then see what they think about that. I'm meeting with the Chamber Regional Policy Committee later today with council member Seekings about just more information so their policy committee can ask questions. 2 weeks ago, there was a meeting, 10 days ago, there was a meeting with the Rosemont community that I joined and Susan joined. There was a follow-up meeting this Saturday. And again, this is very important to us. So I will attend that. And I know the Army Corps of Engineers is trying to do that. I think Wes has a conflict on such short notice with his kids. And so that happens. So they're going to try to find someone else. And we had a meeting this week. Kaylin, Alan Davis, and myself had a meeting this week with the leadership of the yacht club because they're asking questions about and what PED means as you translate that, what TSP means as you translate that into PED. So this kind of engagement and information exchange back and forth is something we need to continue doing, and we're working at it. Just a couple other final things. The Army Corps of Engineers was tasked, so after Hurricane Sandy, the Army Corps of Engineers was tasked with develop a larger risk profile for the nation. So what is the coastal risk in the largest sense of the word? And they first did a NACS study, a North Atlantic Coast Comprehensive Study that was done between 2014 and 2018. And its parameters were from Maine to the Virginia-North Carolina border. They then started another study called the SAC study. So they're real creative with their acronyms, NACS and SACS, but the South Atlantic Coast Comprehensive Study. And that was looking at coastal risk from the Virginia-North Carolina border over to the Mississippi-Louisiana border. So 65,000 miles of coastline. The draft SACS report was released last Friday. It's available online on the South Atlantic Division website, the Army Corps South Atlantic Division website. If you type in SACS USACE in Google, you'll come to the report. It's very long, again, a lot of appendices and things like that. But I think it's important to note what they concluded. They looked at all the coastal risks. They looked at this key population areas. They looked at physical vulnerability to infrastructure and population and social vulnerability. They went through the entire process, economic analysis and all that. And they concluded, in this entire region, Florida carries the most risk, carries about 80% of the coastal risk in the region. It's no surprise, it has the most shoreline. The number two state, second state with the most amount of risk is South Carolina. I think we know why. Charleston is valuable, but there are other places in the coast that have some risk too. And then they looked at all the existing projects and projects that could be imagined to mitigate this risk. So, where do you invest first as a priority? They concluded that the number one priority throughout this entire region is the Charleston district, is the Charleston CSRM study. It is the number one. And so we all know how valuable this place is. This is a separate study from the Army Corps of Engineers, looked at everywhere from North Carolina to the Mississippi, Louisiana. And this is the highest priority because it's the quickest way to bite on risk. The number two is not in Florida. The number two is a Folly Beach, sort of more of a coastal study there because there's surge risk there too. So this should give you a sense that we're talking very real things here. And the Army Corps of Engineers has said this is something that could and should be done. And the coordination of these studies, these were done by two separate places. The CSRM study for Charleston Peninsula is primarily done by ERDIC in the Norfolk District with the Charleston District in line. The NAC study was done by other people in the Charleston District. It was done, in fact, by the South Atlantic Division and folks from the North Atlantic Division. So two separate teams working within the Corps of Engineers on this. And I'll refer this to you. I have images about this, but it is a very important statement from the Army Corps of Engineers of how they bite on risk, a recommendation to Congress. So again, if the city would decide to move forward into PED, the 10.2 is awesome. The 10.2 BCR is awesome. This study just shows that it would be very hard for the Congress not to fund us, not to fund stepping into PED to do a further design and engineering study. Bob asked, I think Susan or Bob or someone asked, could we talk about PED and what is it? I'm happy to do that. Yeah, I don't think I can do it today. I can do it briefly. We just had a conversation with CORE. I've had numerous conversations with the CORE. Cato and I have, and with Alan over, what does PED entail and all that. I sent you all an email probably 3 or 4 weeks ago with sort of the overline of what do you do in PED. This is in the Army Corps CSRM feasibility report, draft optimized from September 10th. It's in pages 267 to 269. So you can look at that. I'm happy to talk more about it if we need to at the next meeting. A financial plan for PED should be ready tomorrow. We finally had some information, worked on some numbers, and Amy Wharton, the CFO, is perfecting those numbers now. So that's good. Again, it's a plan for PED and a strategy for construction, because if we don't get successfully through PED and design and engineer a structure that we want that works for the city, it doesn't make sense to move into construction. So again, you don't want to put the cart before the horse, but you do have to assume that maybe we'll be successful if we step into PED, that we could design a structure that works, and then you'd want to have a strategy for that. You don't want to be naked going into that discussion. So that's there. And then finally, Bob asked me informally last week, hey, could we get the Army Corps of Engineers to respond or to comment on Alan Davis's study? And Bob and I had a discussion. It's sort of, the Army Corps, it's 300 pages. So what do you want them to comment on? It's sort of tough. I have asked that question to them, would they be willing to talk about what is possible and not in PED? Vis-a-vis Alan's suggestions, and the loose answer is there's a lot in there that's very desirable. There's a lot in there that we can certainly explore in PED, but for them to comment on it right now, this is their informal answer, Bob. I'm just being clear here. Their informal answer right now is they would need to know more about these alignments, and do we have any idea of performance? Do we have any idea of cost? Do we have any idea of constructability? And once you could understand that, then I think they can make some comments like thumbs up, this is awesome, and we are going to do this, or we can't do this because the cost will be 10 times more. And so until you get that kind of information, the district is reluctant to go deep into this study and comment there. So they have farmed it up to the chain of command to see what they could say about it. But right now, the answer on that question is until they have a lot more information about those alternatives, and Nancy Parrish, which is the chief planner, has looked at them and she likes them and she thinks some of those are possible without the sort of the performance criteria, the performance and the impact assessment of how these things would perform. It's just hard for them to comment. And I know that's an unsatisfactory answer, Bob, and I'm doing my best. We're waiting for a formal answer, but that's where we stand now. So, and if I'm in the Army Corps' position, and Bob, you work for a corporation, and some of you also work for corporations. Corporations tend not to say things that they're not sure that they can back up. That's a matter of due diligence to protect the corporate reputation. And I think that's what's happening here is they don't want to roll anything in or out now because they don't have enough information to do that vis-a-vis Alan's set of designs. We do see what happened with the port. We thought that was an intractable thing, and now it looks like they're working very diligently to resolve this before TSP is wrapped up. And no one thought that was possible. And here we are. So, so that's my update.
Thanks, Dale. That's quite an update. A lot of notes there. Bob, I see you have your virtual hand up. Go for it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Dale, and thanks, Dale, for all the good work you're doing. It's not blowing smoke. You're doing a great job. Three questions. Two relate to how Alan's work is being socialized. Dale talked on the one. I don't want it characterized as a Bob question. I'd have a straw poll of the committee right now, if I ran the world, of who wants to hear from the Army Corps of Engineers before we take a position on PED in terms of Alan's work. A discussion, not commitments, not blood on a piece of paper. Who wants to hear from the Army Corps of Engineers on how they're processing Alan's good work? And the corollary question is, what has been the exposure of the city council to Alan's work? I noted that it doesn't sound like Alan is going to be one of the speakers at the workshop tomorrow, which I think might be an opportunity missed. But how do we leaven this loaf so that we're fully informed in terms of, we're sort of, people use the very descriptive term of we're sort of kind of buying a pig in the poke, but it would be very useful, I think, for the council to hear from the Army Corps of Engineers that there's going to be the same type of receptivity and flexibility. Specifically, we have a set of, it's not LPP, but it's probably damn close in terms of ideas, if not financial, technical justification. Where do they stand on that? Us going in not having a perspective on how they stand on that is, in my mind, a little crazy, but it's up to the council. But the question
Bob,
in terms
can I respond to that? Bob, can I respond to that? I made a mistake at the beginning when I listed who's presenting to council tomorrow. That's my fault. It's been long hours. Alan is a member of that presentation panel tomorrow. He will be talking, sharing a very similar thing to what he presented to the council, to the committee 2 weeks ago. He has already, I think, given a small briefing. This is months ago to council that they're working on this. Members of council are aware of the wonderful work that they're doing on this. The Alan's report, the 300 pages, was edited a bit for, whatever, it was draft. And so he tidied it up as best as possible. It is being sent or has been sent to council today as part of the documentation for tomorrow's meeting. So I apologize for not sharing or not being as clear as I could earlier. So
no, that answers
just a
both
quick
your questions. Thank you.
Quick note of clarification on that. That document got to council on Friday. I know that council members probably don't spend their weekends as a lot of us do working. I'm sure they do actually, but I don't know how much time they had to process that over the weekend, but we wrapped it up last week. And I saw it go out, I think, end of day on Friday. So hopefully that's enough time for them to at least scan it and take a look at it and maybe zero in on some of the segments that are of most interest to them. I've got a presentation that probably be about 15 minutes at the city council workshop. And as I mentioned to Kaylin earlier this week, we'll have that document available should any council members have specific questions about a specific page or segment. We can bring that up and discuss it at the workshop. So we're doing good. We're also doing a lot of social media around the release of the report, and all of the content is on our website. So at least on our following, we're sort of pushing that out, and we're hoping that the media will start to catch on and present that to others as well. And so we get more people looking at that. And we're also pointing a lot of people towards the Army Corps' report, because that comment period ends very soon. So we're on track with all of that.
A final quick one, and it's on a different topic. Seems like there's been a little bit of a pivot. Maybe I'm misunderstanding it, that Amy's mandate or mission is to clarify the funding sources for first year of PED, but doesn't the certification envelop the city's financial wherewithal for the big casino, the entire project? And is that captured in your comments, Dale, about then there will be a strategy? But I mean, I think we as a council, and once again, not speaking for the council, here I'm talking for Bob, I'd like to see what the plan is to finance whatever our amount is. And it's not a spreadsheet with line item detail and commitments, black ink on white paper, but some notion of how we're going to carry this ball across the finish line. And yeah, PED is the first cash call, but unless I'm misunderstanding, that certification relates to our commitment to go the distance. Thank you.
So let me respond, Bob. Let me just say, I'm with you. A financial, can we do this is essential. Amy we have a call with her later today. I made some suggestions to her last week about possible ways of doing this. She gave me information, so there's an interaction underway. It's wonderful. Stay tuned till tomorrow. You'll see a plan for PED, not year one, but a plan for PED. We're assuming 4 years, could be 5, could be 3, but we're assuming 4, and how that would be funded. And then there is a longer-term plan. It's a strategy of what we think is necessary to be able to meet the financial commitments of the city to this. If we in PED can design and engineer a structure that we want. Okay, and that's a TBD. We don't know that. That's what PED is for, right? To see if we can get there. And then if we can get there, then we decide to move to construction and construct it. And that's where the big ask of money or funding comes from. So again, there's a strategy being developed for the longer term question, but the PED, that will be a plan. That will be with sort of a very
Dale,
significant implication of what that is.
I would just also let the group know, last night the mayor made a comment, and I think these are in big round numbers, but he said perhaps the state would go for the state for 100 million and the county for 25 million. And then he said, I believe he said the easements that we're putting into it are worth another approximate 100 million. At some point, Dale, after you've had more time to work through this, you might summarize that in real broad terms, but show the committee what you're thinking there too.
Yeah, okay. So I'll do that. And again, and this is, I'm doing this in trust with this committee. I mean, nothing I'm saying is not something I wouldn't say in public, but again, I can't get ahead of, I am not the CFO and I am not city council. So I just want to make clear here that this is what we see this. We can see the PED being financed with some surplus hospitality fees and surplus accommodation fees because there are surpluses projected and they feel pretty secure. There's also some funding possibly from the millage bank. So that's a surplus that you see coming forward in the next 2 or 3 years from property taxes that are shared from the county to the city. So this is all very doable. These aren't, in the big scheme of things, these aren't large amounts over 4 years. It's $17 million over 4 years. So it's a large amount, but in the big scheme of things, it's not a terrible amount. Can we do that? Yes. For a financial strategy for construction, we would continue to use a small portion of those surpluses that we see in accommodations and hospitality. They're limited in their use because they have to be related to tourism. So they can't cover the entire structure. I had to do a breakdown of what percent of which PED phase is related to tourist activities on the peninsula. So that's a linear alignment, miles and feet. And then how much of the hospitality taxes could be, or surplus could be used for that. So that is what I gave to Amy, and she's perfecting it now. For the longer term strategy, you do see the 385 being reduced by about $130 million with the value of the easements, because the city and the county and the state own a lot of the property through which this structure, if we do it, is aligned. And the value of that property is a credit. It has a value and it is a credit. So the 385 comes down to, let's say, 255. Again, raw numbers, but when you get the true PED part of that and it gets analyzed, that's what it is. We see the mayor has suggested, a request to the state for $75 million and a request to the county for $25 million. If you look at the long-term benefit that Charleston pays in taxes and gathers in tourism, things that flow up to the county and to the state, that seems a legitimate question. There is money that comes from the federal government whether that's in disaster funds for other things, or as you have now with the American Recovery Plan, these things occur. There's a state infrastructure bank. So there are ways of getting, to justify that request. Again, some of these other surpluses, there is a investigation right now is, could you do a peninsula-wide mid? There's 9,400 properties that would be within a mid, a municipal investment district. And that would then provide, substantial money to exactly what? That's a study that the CFO and the consultant that does these things for the CFO are looking at now. And there is a wonderful opportunity, and maybe Laura's, I don't know, I'm looking at everyone else on the phone, but Laura may understand this. But there is a movement, there is a new vehicle called a resilience bond. That is a very specific type of bond. It brings in private sector money to help the city do this. It's a complex thing. They have a $700 million float out in Europe right now, fully subscribed. It's working. There's a few places that are working here with similar things called EIBs, but a resilience bond is different than that. Very briefly, how it works: city and county pay insurance on certain things to maintain their operations, to maintain their capital. There's insurance payments that we made. Insurance companies looked at that and say, we have this risk facing us. Okay, how can we bite on that risk? So then the insurance companies say, well, if you bite on this risk, your rates are going to go down to X, from Y to X, or X to Y. That difference becomes the component, the possible way you bond this thing. So the city would save this money. You bond against that future possible savings. You get the money to do what you need to do to bite on that risk. So it's a way that the private sector is coming in to help the city do this. It's a little bit different from an environmental impact bond, because an environmental impact bond has environmental performance criteria associated with it. How many pounds of nutrients are removed? How much sediment is trapped? How much carbon is captured? That's an EIB, an environmental impact bond. A resilience bond is sort of like a catastrophe bond. Bob, you may know what that is too, but so those are the components of a strategy to deal with the construction here. And so it's a number of sources coming together. Would have to do some begging in Columbia, would have to do some begging in the county. There's no doubt about it. I'm not saying it's easy, but this is how you do this. You put a stack together and you get there. So I hope
That's great. Dale, that's awesome. And, long overdue. But that kind of thinking is, that's underway is very reassuring. So thank you.
Hey, real quick, just regarding, and yes, agreed with Bob's comment. Thank you. With regards to just timing and process specifically for the meeting, I think it's a good chance to decompress on a number of these items. I know we have a number of questions stacked up from Dan, Susan, and Herbert. And so I'm just going to let those go until 10:30 when Dale has a hard stop, at which point he won't be there to answer any more questions. So we'll keep it going. Bob, does that get your question answered for the moment?
Absolutely. Thanks very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Dan, please go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And by the way, I was on earlier, and I'm having some video problems, but I do want to commend you. I thought you did a wonderful job on the presentation to City Council. My question, Dale, Colonel Kelly, you mentioned, is going to be presenting on November 9th to City Council. It would be ideal if before the 9th, we could have an audience with Colonel Kelly. So maybe if we can figure out a way to do that, that would be greatly appreciated. I'm sure my fellow committee members would love to have an opportunity to have that conversation. I think it would also provide Bob, I know Bob loves the straw polls, and I would have voted yes, Bob, on having the Army Corps of Committee, the Army Corps, listen to Alan's input and get their feedback. So maybe we can kill two birds with one stone and have Colonel Kelly available to us, and maybe we can have those conversations. And then with respect to the sources of funds, that is very encouraging, Dale, to hear that there is now a plan in place. It's interesting that you characterize it as begging. Ultimately, to me, it'll be more about making sure that the plan is sound to go sell it, to make sure that everybody sees it as a solid investment. And my question is, I think what you said is there will be a staff to do that. Number one, is that plan being formulated and written out right now for the sources? Because clearly, I think Dennis mentioned that Mayor Tecklenburg had mentioned a very cursory plan about money from the state, from the county, which is great. But right now, I think that seems to be unilateral. I'd love to hear where the state sits, where the county sits. I like the idea of the resiliency bond. I'd love to hear more about that. But I guess, Dale, the bigger question is, will the city be dedicating dollars and staff? Because look, I know how hard you're working. I know how hard, I know how hard everyone on city staff works. And I think that we'd all agree that there probably will be a need for more human resource hours. Is that something in the works to get a staff together?
I work in the mayor's office. I don't work on city council. I think, that's a question for city council to answer. It's very clear that there is going to be staff support, staff augmentation needed in PED and certainly in construction. If we move down that road, Alan Davis has said very clearly that every moment he spends working on the 3x3, he's not working on someone else. So there's going to have to be some staff augmentation. Keep in mind that the hours, once we move into PED, the hours, and in construction, the hours that he spends or his staff spends on the 3x3 project are billed to the Army Corps of Engineers. So that's part of the city's contribution. Okay, so that's encouraging, but is that sufficient? Because again, if you only have 3 staff, there's an opportunity cost. We all have that. What do I spend my time on in a given day? It means I'm not spending time on something else. So we have to make sure that the staff is fully equipped. Again, since I've been in Charleston, this is just my personal observation. I've heard nothing but the professional dedication of the staff in the city of Charleston. It's what I've seen. It's one of the reasons why I'm here. And I've also heard very clearly from the realtors and from the engineering community and others, like the city staff is overworked. That's what I've heard. It's not my choice. And it's not my role to recommend anything about that. But, I think city council is going to have to weigh in on that.
That we know. That we know.
Thank you, Dale. I appreciate that.
And I will ask about Colonel Kelly, General Kelly. I think he's a general, so I will ask him to do that. I think that's possible, and I actually know him a bit from our work in Norfolk when I was with the embassy. So.
Oh, thank you so much. That would be great.
Thank you. Susan, please go for it.
I know there isn't time for Dale to do this today, but I'm wondering if maybe at our next meeting, you could explain the difference between going with LPP or going with the full PED. Because I know it's come up, and I think we need to understand what those options are and what they might mean in light of all of this. Thank you. And thank you for everything you're doing.
You're welcome. And I'll address that with the next meeting. Thank you.
Thanks. And Herbert, last person to see their hand up, please go for it.
Yes, I'm going to be brief. Thank you, Bob, for raising the question about the Army Corps' flexibility to looking at other options from renowned surveyors, engineers as to flooding and wall protection. it would be enlightening for this committee to have their point of view on the question that you raised, because I raised the question at the Preservation Society when the panel was presenting as to looking at other options. And the lead person from the Army Corps said that he hadn't looked at the report. I found that quite disturbing and perplexing, because any work that I do, I'd like to see some sort of criticism or analysis as to the quality of my work, where I can maybe make some adjustments, make some curves and turns and whatnot. For what I'm hearing, the Army Corps seems not to be as flexible at looking at changing their plans. So it would be to the best interest of this committee, as I'm coming from my perspective, to look at, well, how flexible is the Army Corps to like looking at qualified suggestions as to options when it pertains not only to Rosemont, but to any other community that we're talking about for the Charleston Peninsula.
Let me respond this way, Herbert. We discussed this in a previous advisory committee meeting. The Sherwood report, again, I'm quite familiar with it. I know the guys who wrote it. I know them. And it's a wonderful report. It's aspirational, it's inspirational about a more robust or more integrated approach to water management in Rosemont and in other places. Again, the idea of the living shoreline off the front of the battery, again, they would acknowledge, Sherwood would acknowledge that that's not going to reduce surge. They would acknowledge that. It may be a good thing to do, but it won't reduce surge, and that's what the Army Corps of Engineers study is doing. So that's why they removed it. The Lockwood and the Rosemont ideas, it shows you how creative designers can be, but they weren't engineered. So the Army Corps of Engineers can't respond to that. It's what I said to Bob is, unless you have performance data, some performance data, this is a military organization. It is, it is there. They are going to tell you what they can do, and they're not going to promise you what they can't do. That's a risk for them. And that's how they are. I wish it were otherwise, but this is what they are. And Google and Chase, Chase Bank and JP Morgan Chase and Nucor Steel Corporation, they do the exact same thing. They're very careful with their due diligence, what they say in public. So one of the things that I think it's unfair to say that that we haven't addressed the questions on Rosemont. Herbert, you sent us 8 questions or 9 questions, and they were submitted to the Army Corps and they were answered in writing. If there are more questions, then let's have them. Okay, we want them because I think that's important. The city wants these answers, and we're trying to be as responsive as we can to Rosemont. The thing that is being misunderstood about Rosemont is if you build a wall around Rosemont, like you're building a wall around the peninsula, you will impound water. That means you're going to create the bathtub effect. It's because of how Rosemont, the topography in Rosemont exists, because there's no pump, there's no human engineered drainage up there with pumps and pipes. It is just gravity. So if you put a wall at the end of the low point, you're going to impound water there. And so the Army Corps has to mitigate water that they impound with their structure. That means you're going to have to place pumps at that low point on the end of every street in Rosemont. If you place a pump there, that means you need the space to do it. And once you need that space, you're going to have to buy out a home. Someone is going to have to be removed from their home. That is what the Army Corps of Engineers is trying to prevent. And if you would put a berm or a levee around the city, not a wall, but a berm, a levee, a dirt structure, they reduce surge impacts too. You're going to take up more space than the wall because you again, as I explained before, you need 4 foot of width for every 1 foot of height. So if that berm needs to be at 5 feet tall, then you're going to have 20 feet on one side, 20 feet on another side, and you need 10 feet on the top. That's 50 feet. So you can, if you build that within the community, that means even more homes are going to have to be bought out and taken. We are trying to prevent that. Okay, and if you build it into the marsh, you're going to have marsh impacts there, which is going to be detrimental too. So the Sherwood report is wonderful. It's aspirational. It's something that we can explore in PED, but there are some limitations to what the Sherwood report recommended, because they don't deal with surge as well as they deal with the more comprehensive approach of tidal and stormwater and future groundwater and future adaptation. So they do wonderful things there, and I will not critique my friends at Sherwood, but with surge, they don't perform as well in some ways. And we've discussed this. So I'm doing the best I can with your community. We are doing the best we can to explain what this is and what it isn't. If I were king, I would not just do a surge structure in Rosemont. I would do an integrated plan, which is what Haygood recommended on your behalf to City Council, last week. So we want to get there too, but unfortunately, I don't know what the appropriate analogy, but I can't get my tooth extracted at a car dealership. It just doesn't work that way. And that's, I don't know what it is. The Army Corps is not authorized to do stormwater work. They are just not. That's because stormwater work is a true local issue regarding land use and planning and zoning. And the last thing that Congress would do, and most local and state legislators would be for, would be saying, hey, the congressman from Maine should be telling the folks in Rosemont how they should design their community. That would be a tremendous overreach of federal authority. So water use is generally, water management is done at the local level, except for surge, and the state has a responsibility for riverine. Everything else is local, and I can't change that. We're not the Netherlands. The Netherlands, they have it all lined up perfectly, but we are not the Netherlands. So, and I'm happy to discuss with any member of your community. Happy to. I know this is difficult stuff. I know. I mean, for everyone. I said that yesterday when we talked to the chamber. The engineers have their own shortcut language, and the Army Corps has its own shortcut language, and everything's in acronyms, and they use these little sayings. And the common person, like you and me, we're like, what are you talking about? We don't understand them. So my job is to help translate this so that we can all understand this. And I am telling you, I am happy to come out to your community to talk to anyone at any moment. That's my pledge to you.
Thank you, Dale. I appreciate your response. I don't question your ability as far as the position you're in. I don't question the Army Corps. I was asking about their flexibility. I heard in this committee meeting their reluctance to be flexible about changing their plan. I'm looking at the person buying that pig without poking it, and that doesn't make sense to me. So the questions come up. And so far, the questions or concerns of the Rosemount resident, they expressed to me is inadequate or unacceptable. So I have to ask questions here in the committee. Right. And I'm glad that there are committee members who can see where I'm coming from. Not that nobody else does, but it gives more input to whatever question arises. I was just concerned, no different than any other member of this board, this committee, what the Army Corps' perception is as to evaluating other options as what is on their plan.
That's what we do in PED.
Rosemount receives a lot of, Dale, Rosemount receives a lot of flooding. I'm talking to residents practically every other day, and they're telling me about the flooding that comes up to their property and beyond. I don't have this professional skills or wherewithal to understand all the ins and outs of the engineering process. But Rosemount left the way it has been said to me and the residents, the way it is, it does not make sense for the community to be left that way. So I'm asking questions to give them something as far as
Sure.
feedback as to what alternative they have as to be a safeguard for the flooding, for any storm surge that comes up. And that's
Right.
where I'm at with asking the questions.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not-
I understood, Herbert. Rosemont has a number of flooding challenges. It does. I mean, it's got a tidal challenge, and we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. It's got a stormwater challenge, a rainfall challenge, right? A drainage challenge. It's got this new challenge that seems to be coming from the sound wall that was constructed for the highway behind there, and that's displacing water. It's got a number of challenges, and they need to be approached in an integrated way. The Army Corps of Engineers does not have authority or funding to deal with that. So it's on the city, the rest of the city, to come up with a plan that would take the surge risk reduction responsibility from the Army Corps of Engineers and then use city resources to manage and develop a plan to manage your stormwater challenge, your tidal challenge, and your groundwater challenge and your compound flood challenge, in addition to your surge risk. So that's what this resilience plan would try to accomplish. Okay, so if the citizens in Rosemont are asking the Corps of Engineers to put pumps and pipes under the ground to help with stormwater, but don't worry about the surge risk, the Army Corps cannot do that. They're not authorized to do that. Congress, unless Congress gives them the authority to do stormwater work, they don't have it. And there's only one city in the world where they have the authority to do stormwater work, and it's in New Orleans, and that's a historical artifact that dates from the 1930s and an updated law in 1990. So I appreciate, you're getting questions, and not everyone understands this. I know you've learned a lot, we all learned a lot, but we have to keep what the Army Corps of Engineers is authorized to do and the city is authorized to do with the Army Corps in perspective. That's one thing. And the second thing about flexibility, we don't know what is possible or what alternatives are possible in Rosemont or on Lockwood until we get to PED, right? We need to step into PED to do the design and engineering for the entire peninsula to see what's possible. And Alan Davis has shown a lot of what's possible. We need to do that study, that engineering and design to see what's possible. So that's what we do. We step into PED and we do the research, we do the engineering and design that we need to do to see what's possible and what its impact will be, how much risk it's going to reduce, and what benefits it might provide and what it's going to cost. And if it falls within the realm of the possible of PED, then we do it. I mean, then we can do it. And again, we don't know until we step into PED. So flexibility of the Army Corps of Engineers, I just gave the example. There seemed to be, an intractable division of opinion between the Army Corps of Engineers and the port for Union Pier Terminal and Columbus Terminal until we sort of pushed hard on it and have them resolve it, and they're working now. And there looks like they're resolving it. And if you want to talk about a big move, a big show of flexibility to move the line of protection, the surge wall alignment off of Washington and off of East Bay Street, that's, I don't know, 2 or 3 miles of property, whatever that is, they're moving that. They're talking about moving it all the way to the Cooper River. That shows a tremendous amount of flexibility.
And to your point, I mean, there's a lot of impacted folks along the east side, a lot of people on, obviously Rosemont, there's a lot of folks that are impacted. So
I got to run. I'm very sorry, everyone. Herbert, you have my number. Please call me. I'm happy to talk at any moment with you. I really am. Okay.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay. Thank you. I'll see y'all
Dale,
sometime soon.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dale. All right. Dan, I know we didn't get to you. Was your hand up specific to Dale? Was it a question?
Yeah,
for Dale?
well, I just want to say, and I'm more than happy to share it with my fellow committee members. Clearly, it would have been more directed to Dale, but obviously with the talks of flexibility, I want to urge the rest of the committee members in hearing about the Rosemont issue, and then especially with Dale talking about, the push that we made to get flexibility out of the core, which, by the way, we don't know if that's going to come to fruition or not. I think we as a committee need to push to say, look, Rosemont is a complex situation and it's a community that needs to be protected. And right now, it doesn't seem as though the core solution is going to do that. So therefore, this is a perfect example of the complexities of the integration of what needs to be done with respect to not just surge protection, but with respect to an integrated approach to handle stormwater management and tidal flooding. Why don't we push? As a committee, I'm urging us, and I know every single one of us have talked about specific areas and issues, but what I'm saying right now is I've listened to my fellow committee member, Herbert, talk about the frustrations that he's having with respect to being able to communicate to his community what is going on with this wall. I think we need to push hard, and if it means pushing on the city itself and not the core, well, we need to do that. And I know that we have another opportunity to make a recommendation, Haygood, and I'm not making right now a formal motion, but I think we need to have it up for discussion. What are we going to do to put more pressure to make sure that the Rosemont community is being properly protected and that they are properly integrated into what needs to get done for protection? Because clearly, and look, Dale admitted it, it's a complex situation, right? I mean, it definitely has its nuances, but if what Dale is telling us is that the core was flexible because we put pressure on them with respect to Union Pier and Columbus Terminal, well, why don't we put pressure on them on every area of the city? Like, in other words, let's continue to push hard until they give us what they want. I just don't understand why that's such a difficult conversation.
Yeah, Dan, I don't disagree with you. And then, along those same lines, I mean, the Cooper's a great example, right? I mean, it's a great, it's a perfect example, and the acknowledges that, the core acknowledges that, hey, these are areas that we just didn't devote enough time to, or they require more study, I think is specifically what it says. So anyway, point being that there are areas that I get calls from major stakeholders that aren't represented here that, say to them, hey, get in touch with Dale, get in touch with, make those introductions, get in touch with, the Army Corps. But yeah, I think you raise a great point.
And I think that's why I would
Sorry.
like to have, I'd like to have General, if he is a General Kelly, I'd like us to have an audience with him. And I think that it would be great. First of all, I commend Dale for moving up the chain of command. And if that individual is someone that we can bend their ear, then I think we need to push to have that opportunity to have General Kelly address this committee so that we can properly share our concerns with him as well.
Quick update, Mr. Chair, on the Rosemont front from the city's perspective. Herbert, you reached out last night about the upcoming community meeting this Saturday. I think you saw, you're looped in. The Army Corps of Engineers, the city will be coming out to the community center this Saturday at the request at 4 o'clock. So that will be happening this Saturday. Obviously, the chair put forth the Rosemont resiliency recommendation to council, and it's the committee now to put forth the further recommendations for if your date is set for the 9th. And as Dale said, Dan, we can certainly reach out to the Army Corps to see if the committee's wish is to see if we could get him, the next scheduled meeting of the committee is November 3rd, to see if you all would like to have him and maybe any other people from the Army Corps team on the call, just let us know and we'll reach out. And as Dale also mentioned, Haygood, as the stakeholders reach out to you, as you did over the past few weeks, you let us know, and we're setting up meetings and engaging. So that's just this update as far as our engagement efforts and upcoming meetings and things of that nature. So continue to let us know, and we're going to continue to engage on that. But as far as logistics and decisions for this committee, you're set for November 9th for the recommendations. Again, it's movable if need be, but if you want to focus on what you want to present to council at that moment, and then anything that you need from our end prior to that recommendations, you just let us know, and we'll make it happen to the best of our ability.
Thanks, Kaylin. So, Susan, I'll get to your question, but I do want to make a point. The specific agenda today, we had some discussion regarding natural and nature-based features. However, I think this discussion was productive. It was a great chance to decompress on where we are and where we're going. And, it was a little bit loose as far as batting around questions and answers, but they're all very relevant. And I think they're all items that needed to, that merited further discussion. That said, we are about 15 minutes out at the moment. So what I'd like to do is, number one is Susan, get you and your question. And after that, leave everybody with the charge of, take another look at Dale's, remaining recommendations from Dale's email, and coming prepared to discuss that. And I'll send that, as well as the YouTube link and notes as well. But just wanted to make that quick point of clarification as far as this meeting goes. And Susan, please go for it.
Thank you. I want to back up what Dan said about Rosemont. I have gone to one meeting on Saturday, and I'm going again this coming Saturday. And I wanted to suggest that anybody in our committee who hasn't actually gone to Rosemont and driven around would benefit from that. I'm sorry we don't have more people on the call. It really drives home what the problem is there. And it is really complicated. And it strikes me that the city has a big responsibility there where the Army Corps cannot respond. And I think that was at least part of our thinking in promoting a complete citywide water plan that would indeed incorporate what Rosemont needs from the city. I understood that the sound wall that went up by the state DOT created yet an additional problem up there, which is really awful. And so the state might have a role to play here. But the reason we would need a comprehensive city plan is to incorporate problems like this. The Rosemont community deserves better than it seems to be getting at the moment. And I think that's Herbert's concern. And it's also the concern of the members of the community who have lived there and suffered with flooding in an unimaginable way. It's embarrassing that the city of Charleston can't do better by that community. So I just wanted to put that out there.
And I'll add the resiliency study too. You mentioned the water plant, Susan, but the resilience study, addition to what you said, it's a lot of stuff. It's, the storm surge is just toward Rosemont. I saw a lot of issues with water management personally, and just right. Stormwater infrastructure. On the northern end, I forget the intersection, but there's an empty lot on the northern end, adjacent to the park that was fully flooded. Something that it just water wasn't being managed.
Right. And it just makes your heart ache to think that people who are living there have to get up every morning and face that. It isn't fair. It isn't right. So we really should take that on as a city.
That's agreed. Councilmember Ware, I saw you.
Yeah, I've been going back and forth, Mr. Chairman, and I'll have my chance to talk, obviously, with council and all of that. But the first time I heard about the financial strategy was this morning. I mean, that's the very first time I heard that. It's amazing you're going to go to certain stakeholders and ask for money, but they're not part of the process. If you're going to go to the state and ask for, $100 million, or you're going to go to the county and ask for $25 million, shouldn't somebody from the county have been on this committee? It's amazing this financial plan is coming up as this head question is coming before council. We've had a year put together a financial plan, and anyway, the timing of it sounds a little bit like Jello up against a wall, trying to get Jello stick up against the wall. We're gonna go to the state for 100 million. I hope we get it. I hope we get 200 million. Okay. We're gonna go to the county and get 25 million. I hope we get 50 million. Okay. And then we got this new bond that's coming up, and then we got this mid-tax that was in the newspaper yesterday that we just passed one. I voted against it. We just passed one on Johns Island. That, think about this. It's a tax on every new house and every new business that's built in the outline. And it comes with an automatic 2% increase every year. I've never even heard, I don't even think that is legal in South Carolina, but I gotta be frank, if I was in the General Assembly, I'd submit a bill in January. I've never heard it. Think about any tax that you pay. If your income stays the same, that you're gonna have a 2% increase every year. We need to, I'm looking forward to the presentation. I'm glad you all asked for Alan Davis's portion to be presented, but the same question that Herbert has, Bayside Manor, or Bridgeview, I think it's called now, Bridgeview Apartments, that's 300 low-income families that's outside the wall. That's on the other side of the peninsula off of Morrison Drive. I find it curious that Bayside is out, and Bridgeview is out, and Rosemount is out. There's some very interesting symmetry there. That's all I can think. So we need a big comprehensive push for revenue. And to do that, you have to include other stakeholders. I guess this is a prelude to, I may be in the minority on council on this, I don't know. But when this water flows, it just doesn't flow in the city of Charleston. This comprehensive approach that the city is going to shoulder by itself, I just think we can do better than that. I think there's a better solution out here than a partial wall, or a partial wall, or comprehensive water plan. And I hope the catalyst in this committee can help us to get towards that. I'm sitting listening when we needed a Cooper River Bridge. That wasn't a new bridge. That wasn't Mount Pleasant's problem by itself. It wasn't the city of Charleston's problem by itself. When we needed a second way to get to Mount Pleasant, and we needed a bridge over the Wando, that wasn't a Mount Pleasant problem by itself. It wasn't a North Charleston problem by itself. So when this water rises, our water supply comes from up in Hanahan. There's a Eddystone River up there. You think the stormwater surge is going to stop at the battery? Should we get a hurricane? So if that stormwater surge goes all the way up to Cooper, it can encroach on our water supply. Saltwater intrusion into freshwater water supply. Shouldn't CPW be around? So you have this big storm. We have this wall that protects the peninsula. The surge, there are a lot of stakeholders to this process. One of the issues with including other stakeholders who have financial purses, is that they're subject to disagree with me. And I think that disagreement, believe it or not, lends to a more comprehensive solution to a problem that affects us all. And until we, this shouldn't be a Charleston against the rest of this region. Charleston doesn't have the best ideas. We've got some thinking on it, but I certainly include everybody who thinks, you know, we can be solution oriented to cure flooding, drainage, water problems, basically water problems that we face like no other state in this city, no other city in this state right now. And how do we get to a solution that gets us there? Initially, we needed 600 million. Now it's been adjusted now to we now needing 300 and some odd million. And is that plan the best plan? Anyway, so you can sense some of the frustration in myself. I think we go for the best and we go for the comprehensive funding, but to do that, you're gonna have to include additional stakeholders to get the level of revenue that we need. But when you include other stakeholders, they have other ideas as well. It was great to have State Ports Authority on this, committee. It's great to have a Herbert Maybank on there. All of you all have done wonderful jobs, but there's some other stakeholders out there that, in my opinion, need to be part of this process if you're going to get to the eventual solution that helps us all. So anyway, and you all can play a part in that as well, realizing that after storms, what happens if our water supply gets contaminated because saltwater intrusion goes up there into the freshwater supply, into the eddy stuff. So anyway, I'm off my track there. So I got a little angst when I began to hear. I am firm that I'm not the only council member who heard that potentially for the first time. And I think I see Council Lady Jackson on here. But I would suspect out of 12 of us, I don't know that there's a majority of us that's heard about what was presented this morning. So please stay centered and when it comes to how we're going to pay for this. And we need fundamentals when it comes to that, not hyperbole. So we all continue on this journey together. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Councilmember Waring. And I was just going to say, I mean, you're the one there before, so I mean, your thoughts and a regional and statewide basis is crucial. I mean, like you said, it's
Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example. I just, as a result of that, I made a couple calls up to the county. I'm waiting on people to call me back. But you all maybe remember when they had a real bad earthquake in China and kids got killed in the school and all that kind of stuff. As a result, we had a number of schools on the peninsula. And, we got an earthquake fault running through the peninsula. And the school district came to basically the community and said, we need to raise, I think it was 600 million or whatever it was, to redo Memager, redo Buse. The number of schools on the peninsula, they're all now rebuilt. Okay. And there was another penny tax for that, but it was for a shorter period of time. I have got some calls in the county council to see when does that mature? Because it wasn't for 25 years, it wasn't for 20 years. I think it was either 6 or 10 years. Now, if that penny tax is, listen, I don't want to give hope. I don't know when that matures, but we can find that out like that. If that penny tax is about to come back, roll off, basically, then that's some funding that, wow, I think we should go at with a vengeance. You'd be shocked what a half a penny does. Well, a half a penny, the last one I think generates in Charleston County generate what, $2.4 billion. So the ability is there. I don't know if our process right now gets us there. But the drainage problems and that Susan just related to, that it's a shame that Rosemount has to undergo that. Herbert is right, Susan's right, everybody's right on it. This thing about not having the money to do it. We have never had a comprehensive push, and we don't have the river. Our CFO, we have a workshop today, a budget workshop today. As far as our staff work, she sent us the paper 12:07 a.m. this morning. This lady got a family, and she's up cranking out work, sending it out to council people for us to review. She's already put in a full day's work. 12:07 a.m. She sent out the staff. We got dedicated staff, but they are flat out working their tongues out. So that comprehensive approach is going to take more than city influence. We have to have other stakeholders that say involved in this process as well. And that's something I'll take up with the mayor. But the more you all know, the more you all can help. And I'm not saying that to patronize. So I told you, Mr. Chairman, I thought you did a good job so far because it's been a respectful environment. People speak one at a time. It's not crossing over one another, arguing. That's what's propelled this effort forward to where we are today. And I commend you again for doing that, and the committee members. And continue to look forward to work with you on this one. Anyway, thanks for the time.
My pleasure. Thank you, Councilmember Waring. Yeah, thank you greatly. I know we're up on time, and it looks like Dan and Susan have a couple of questions. I unfortunately have a hard stop, but that definitely does not. I encourage everybody that has time on to please stay on. And
Well,
so
I mean, hey, good. And I know, Susan, I'm sorry, but at this point, I think we're down to 4 committee members. So, I mean.
Yeah. No, we are.
I don't
Happy
think.
to keep the line on, but I don't know how many people will stay on. So it may be best to just.
Well, I mean, put it this way. It looks like our time is up. So I'm going to jump off, but I will say this. I think that,
I'll get it.
I'm going to end on this one thing for the 4 of us in regard to what I just heard from Councilman Waring and understanding what we're dealing with Rosemont. And I know we're dealing with the Army Corps, but maybe we should take a page out of the Marines book and leave no Marine behind. I think that we got to look at every single community, every single asset in this city. They're all valuable, and we should be protecting everything. And so that's what I'm going to end on. But I appreciate everybody sticking in. Boy, I tell you, we've put a lot of time into this.
No, I agree. And meetings like this are good to decompress. Workshop tomorrow. Please, everybody, look at those recommendations from the email Dale had sent out, and look forward to, I guess, Ken, are we next regularly scheduled meeting? Is that the
November 3rd is the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
I just had a quick point to the councilman's discussion. There is a state level flood commissioner, and I don't know whether we are in touch with him.
To a point, yes, he's been in a meeting that we've had in September, the commissioner, and on the state resilience officer was here, updated on this project, and we have a follow-up with him on Friday as well. So the state and Tom McKilligan is the state floodwater commission, and he was in a meeting in September. So yes, they are on the radar and engaged and involved. So
thank you. I didn't know.
And I'm happy, maybe not in the next 24 hours, but I'm happy to kind of put some bullets of where we are with engagement, for the committee too. So if that's helpful for you to understand, I think, Dale's been giving the update each week, but if it's kind of a synopsis of who we've been chatting with, engaging with, that request, I can do that. But
I think that would be good because I think we want to start communicating with other people about how big this is and who's.
We are, we are, I promise we are.
You
We
are,
can
but I
talk to
mean-
the county and state.
Understood, but I mean, the public does not know this necessarily. So
Well,
that's.
I will do the plug for folks to tune into the workshop tomorrow, either in person. It will be also be on in the ballroom at the Gilliard, or it will be on the city's YouTube. So it's a hybrid. We'll be socially distanced. Gilliard does require vaccination proof or COVID negative test, just if you're planning to join in person. But we'll be there, and we hope to see some of your faces there tomorrow.
Great, thanks, y'all. I'm gonna sign off, but appreciate everybody.
Lower hand.